What's up, everybody? It's Soren Baker here on Unique Access Entertainment. As always, please hit that subscribe button. It's right down there and it's free. That enables us to keep coming to y'all as often as possible with as many interviews as possible. So please hit that subscribe button, like our content, share it, talk about it, be about it, each one, teach one. And we appreciate your support in getting us this far. Now, today we have the honor and the privilege of being joined by Mr. Jesse West. Thank you for coming through, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thanks for having me, man. I always appreciate it.
Yes. So we got a lot of great things to talk about. He's put in a lot of work over the years and many things to discuss. So I first really heard of you through the No Prisoners album back in the 89 era. So circa
89, that was 89. Yeah, that was I was the first rap record that Motown, the legendary Motown Records, the first rap record they ever released was my record. So that's some little interesting history.
How and why, of all the labels that were out, and at that point a lot of labels were putting out rap, how and why did you get with Motown?
Well, I got to deal with Motown through Commissioner Gordon Williams. I don't know, some people may be familiar with him. He's a good friend of mine, and we had met, and I started making demos. I was going to a studio making demo. And he knew Timmy Regisford, who was at the time just happened to be the A&R Motown. He had a relationship with Timmy, and he took Timmy my demo. Timmy took it to Gerald Busby, who was the president of Motown at the time, and they signed us. I actually signed a deal together with Rich Nice, who he co-hosts with Sway on the Sway in the Morning show.
Yeah.
So we signed the Motown together. We recorded our albums together. And so I was the first record Motown put out. The second rap record was MC Trouble. She was the first one they signed. But we finished my record so quickly, my record ended up being the first record that they put out. And then they put out Trouble, and then they put out Rich Nice. So Rich Nice was third. Yeah, okay. Rich Nice put out a classic record too. His record was classic.
So that being said, given that Motown is legendary, one of the most important labels in music history on the one hand, but also didn't have any history with rap at that point, what made that a good move for you guys instead of trying to go with a Def Jam or a Cold Chillin' or a Tommy Boy or something?
It wasn't a good move. We were naive. We were young, man. I was 21. I think Gordon was 22. We just was thinking that's Motown, what could be better? We weren't thinking about their marketing capabilities, which they had a great marketing team. They just had never marketed hip hop music. So, they didn't know what to do. And the first real success they had was with Wreckx-N-Effect.
The Rump Shaker.
Right. And I forgot the name of their record. They had a record that was really good, but they also had a street team. They had their own situation with Teddy Riley and Gene Griffin and so forth. And so they had a marketing team behind them that knew what to do. We were just strictly Motown, and they tried. My record became a classic solely thanks to Kid Capri. Kid Capri put me on the map before I even knew him. I didn't even know who he was. But somehow he got a hold of my record and he started putting it on his tapes. So when he put it on his tapes, it became a classic. Like, I can't tell you how many people I ran into that, hey, that your album, No Prisons, got me through college. And, that's how I met D.O.C Effects. They were like, yo, we were in college, man, me in school, and your record. And same thing with Noriega. When I met Noriega, he was like, yo, I used to go to the store to buy Kid Capri tapes, and the first thing I would ask is Jesse West song on there. He was like, if Jesse West song wasn't on it, this is what he was telling me. And I was like, wow. And that's all based on Kid Capri. If it wasn't for Kid Capri, the record would have just been a total wash,
Well, it's important to shout out Kid Capri, obviously one of the most important DJs in rap history, especially with the mixtapes and stuff. But also, I think it's important to explain to people now that may have forgotten or that just don't know how integral in this late 80s, early 90s time it was to have that push by the DJs on top of everything else that was going on, especially in New York, how important that was.
Oh, it was very important. Back in those days, your number one marketing tool was the DJ. You know, you had to get the DJ. That was the thing that we did. You know, when we got records, we went from club to club and approached the DJs. You know, please, can you play this? You know, whether it was in the club. You know, you got to remember there was a time where Kid Capri pioneered the mixtape. You know, I think Hollywood used to do mixtapes, but you know, Hollywood was a little older. You know, Kid Capri, he took it to another level because his mixtapes. I would go visit family in Florida, and they had a Kid Capri tape. Or I remember one time I was going to visit family, and they were like, "Yo, when you come, could you bring a Kid Capri tape?" I was like, "What you know about Kid Capri?" And he was like, "Yo, you go ahead, bring it, please, bring a Kid Capri tape." You know, Kid Capri was the man.
Yes, he was.
Days Von G started making noise, and you know, a lot of them followed. You know, I remember, I think Ron G was the next person. There was a DJ, Sycamore. Sycamore was kind of dope too, man, with his tapes. SNS, DJ SNS, he was doing this thing too.
There's so many and so much influence that we've kind of lost. We've definitely lost that in the game, which I think is too bad.
Yeah. People don't understand the importance of that. You know, it's still very important, man. But you know, I don't. You know, now once see, and another reason why Kid Capri was so, you know, his tapes were so prevalent because we weren't represented that much on the radio at the time either. You know, and then we didn't have social media. So, you know, his tapes was like the Bible. If you wanted to know what was hot and what was popular, you had to get it, you know, you had to get a mixtape. You know, then it exploded when the CDs came out. I mean, I used to go to the store and buy a stack of mixtape CDs just to play in my car, you know.
Yeah.
That was
absolutely. Now on the New Prisoners album, we used to get the little stickers or whatever on the covers or what have you. Preach, Teach, and Educate Jesse West. The Rap Rhythm Professor is in. So do you remember how you guys were trying to position yourself as that type of rapper?
Well, to be honest with you, we didn't have any idea. It was a learn as you go. We didn't have any idea. We didn't know about marketing. We didn't know about, like you say, positioning ourselves. You know, we just thought we were studio rats. We just thought, just stay in the studio, make music, push out beats. I was just learning production because of that album. I only did 2 songs myself on that album. The rest of the album was produced by Gordon Williams. And we, you know, I didn't really learn about those sort of things until later on in the game. You know, that's why that album was just, you know, and they picked up the option for a second album, and I started recording the second album, and then you know, personnel started changing at record labels, and then next, you know, I was dropped. So, you know, then right after I got dropped from Motown, that's when I started working with Puffy, with P. Diddy, right after. So, you know, the rest is history.
Yeah, I want to get into a lot of that, but some of the things I was interested on No Prisoners, because you did produce some of it. Did you get into the game wanting to be a producer as well, or is that something that just happened?
Not at all. Not at all. I had no desire. I never had a desire to be a producer, which is ironic because 80% of my success came from production, and it was Puffy that really convinced me to produce, because it wasn't anything prolific that he said to me. It was just giving me money for beats, and you know, naturally I was like, "Whoa, hey, whoa, wait a minute, this is easy," you know, because it's what I did all day anyway. I only see when I started out very young. I always tell people the story. I learned when I was like 15 and 16. I started learning production, not only from Gordon Williams, but from Grand Mixer DST. Well, he's DXT now. You know, anybody that knows who DST is, but he's one of the first master producers, and we're from the same neighborhood. And I looked up to him, and the day I met him, I was 15 when I met him. And he asked me, he said, "What do you do?" I said, I make demos, I rhyme and whatnot. And he said, "You got any of your material on you?" And I always carried around a cassette. So I gave him a cassette. And he said, what's on this? I said, "It's like 8 songs. He said, "Yeah, who did the music?" I said, "I did the music." And I'll never forget, he paused and he looked at me. Then he said, "All right, I'll check it out." And then about maybe an hour later, some guy comes running down to the corner. He goes, "Who's Jesse West?" And I said, "Me." He said, "Come with me, man." I was like, who are you? He was like, "DST wants you to come to his house." So that was crazy to me. Like, oh shit, he likes the demo. And to make a long story short, the first thing he said to me, he said, "Yo, I like you. I want to work with you, shorty." He said, "But we have to have honesty." He said, "I can't work with people that, you have to keep it real with me." And I said, "Well, what do you want to know?" He said, "Who did the music on this track?" I said, "I told you it was me." And he was like, "All right, if it was you, what did you use?" And once I started telling him, "Well, I have a Tascam and CZ101, and I got a DDD1 drum machine, and but I also got a TR909." And once he heard that technical talk, he knew that I was serious. But that's how uncommon it was. It's not like today. You got 15-year-olds that's ridiculous right now. But back then, so starting out that young, I said all that to say, starting out that young, I still didn't have any information on the terminology of making music. I didn't know what a producer was. I didn't know that there was someone that did the music, and then there were artists who just performed. My looking at TV and listening to records, I thought that those artists that I was hearing were also making the music. I didn't know it was, different producers, because I didn't read credit. I mean, I may have read credits and you see producers, but I didn't know what that meant. So I thought, I want to make records. This is what I want to do. So in order for me to do that, I wanted to be an artist. I said, so in order for me to do that, I have to learn how to make music, which, worked to my advantage, because I'm a musician. I play guitar, I play all self-taught, I play keyboards, and that was because of me developing these habits early on that, okay, I got to learn what a chord is. And that was from, being under the tutelage of Gordon Williams and DST, explaining to me, listen, this is what a minor chord is. This is what a major chord is. You got to know music theory, and also the advantage too was that we started out before there were samplers. So it's like you basically, you had to know music. There were no samplers, I mean, there were samplers, but we weren't exposed to them. I think the first record that I ever heard with a sample in it was Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. They had a record called Larry Love, talking about their dancer, Let's Your Boogie. It was called Larry, and it was like la 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 la. And that was incredible to us. That was like, oh my God, where the hell did you get that from? When you think back now, what it was that's preschool,
Right.
But to us, magical, but that also worked out to our advantage. These kids today, they're at a terrible disadvantage. Because first of all, 90% of them, they're not even playing anymore. They're just clicking notes on a screen. They're not even playing chords anymore. Their fingers, they're not exercising. They're just clicking. They're playing chord progressions by clicking on the screen, and I think that's just a sad disadvantage,
Yeah, it's a huge difference. And given what you were just saying, I'm interested too to explain how and why did you end up getting all the equipment? Did your parents, your mom, somebody buy it for you? Did you
No, I was fortunate. As I said, along the way, I met a lot of people who had equipment that it's amazing, because all of these people that I met, I met a man who used to have a record. He used to have a record pool in the Bronx called Shaw Record Pool. His name was Bobby Davis. He just passed away a few years ago, but he had Shaw Record Pool, and he had a studio. And I just met him because I would always walk by every day and saw that it was a record pool. It had something to do with records. I didn't know what a record pool was. One day I just walked up in there, explained to him what I did. Because you got to remember, I was young. I was still 17, 16. And I walked up in there and introduced who I was and told him what I do. And he had this equipment that he didn't know how to use. He was telling me, I had these producers and they were working in here, but they're gone now. And I automatically knew what it was. I was like, oh, well, you got this. And once he saw me turn everything on and he saw that I knew what to do with it, he gave me carte blanche to just come on specific days and do whatever I wanted. And then I met another brother who turned out to be my DJ, Craig O. Him and his brothers, they was in the hustling and doing their thing. So they had the money to buy these machines. And again, he would let me come up there and work. I had another friend named, we used to call him Buff, live in Gun Hill. Same thing. And then with Gordon, I just met all of these people that had studios. And then when I got my advance from Motown, when I signed with Motown, I got my advance. I went to Motown, picked up the check, and then walked down the block to Sam Ash and spent the whole thing. It wasn't a lot of money. It was maybe $7,500. But I spent the whole thing in Sam Ash. And that was 89. And I still have a studio. I've had a studio ever since.
Wow.
Yeah, I've run through, man, maybe when I see the SB1200 for 15 grand right now, I'm like, damn, SB1200s, they weren't that durable. After a while, when you were using them the way I was working, you might end up pushing one of the pads, one of the squares, you might end up pushing it in, and I would take it to Rogue, sell it, run down the block to Sam Ash, buy another one, and I was like, damn, I swear I went through about at least 5 or 6 SB1200s.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, because as soon as it was, or this button is something that was crackling, the sliders, because it has the sliders on it. Oh, these 2 sliders are crackling. I take it, they sell it to Rogue, whatever they give me for that, run down the block to Sam Ash, buy another one. Just that cycle went until the MPC 2000 came out. Then I became an MPC person and regrettably gave up my SB1200. A friend of mine, he still has one, and this what's interesting is he still has one. And maybe about a year ago, when I was at his house, man, we were doing something, and he let me know he has his SB1200 in the closet. I said, "You got SB1200? Pull it out." After about an hour working on that shit, I said, "Man, get this shit from in front of me." I cannot go back to, first of all, not seeing the wave when I'm trying to chop it, because now you see, and I can't go back to numbers, and it was terrible. So I understand, people, if you got it, I would never spend 15 grand on SB1200. It doesn't make sense to me at all, at all. You got the right instrument, you can make your music sound like whatever you want.
That's true. Now on No Prisoners, Renegade was one of the singles. And I remember you were talking about your mother told you were too black, too strong on the one hand, but then you were talking about doing time on the island. So what was, I assume you were talking about Rikers Island, but I never knew.
Yeah. See, when I signed with Motown, I had just got out of prison. It had been a year. Let me see. I got out of prison in July of 1988, and then I signed with Motown August of 1989. But while I was in prison, so I turned 20 in prison. And I remember I met a Muslim brother. His name was Sharif. He was an older guy. It's not like he took me under his wing or anything like that. We just had a dialogue with each other. And one of the things I did while I was locked up was I was always rhyming. I was always battling. And I tell people all the time, man, I think I must have lost every battle I had in prison. The most talented people are locked up. Like every battle I had, I lost. And I might have had about 20 battles, and I probably lost all of them. But it didn't do anything to my confidence. It just was like, I was just like, man, these dudes. But anyway, one day, and it'll explain why I looked the way I did on the album cover. One day I was in his cell talking to him, and he had a picture of Malcolm X, but under it said Malik Al-Shabazz. And I was standing there and I looked at the picture and I said, that looked like Malcolm X. He said, it is Malcolm X. I said, well, why does it say Malik Al-Shabazz? You know, what is that? And he was like, that's his name. When he went to Mecca, he changed his name. You know, he's like, what is his name? And I was like, oh, I didn't know that. And he was like, you didn't know that? I said, I mean, I know it's Malcolm X, but I don't know what he did. Like, you know, why is he so famous? And I remember he looked at me like, what do you mean, why is he so famous? I was like, I don't know nothing about him. I know when I see a picture of him, I know. And he said, how old are you, young lad? I said, I'm 20. He said, you 20 and you don't know nothing about Malcolm X. I was like, I don't know nothing about, I know, what's the big deal? And I remember he gave me an autobiography of Malcolm X with no cover on it. And he said, listen, you're gonna read this. He said, if you don't come back and talk to me no more until you read this book. And it took me a few days for me to really even open it because I wasn't a reader. I was like, man, fuck this. I'm not reading it. I ain't got time to be reading this book. Shit, fuck him. We just won't talk no more. And I was bored one day and I opened it up and I started reading it. And I must have read the whole thing in about a day and a half. And it changed my life simply because the part that mattered to me the most was that he went to prison. He did 6 years in prison. And he got out and became this great Black leader, this great world figure. That's mainly what had an impact in me because I wanted to make records, even though I was in prison, I already had demos because while I was in prison, they were shopping to take the Motown. But in them days, you couldn't tell a record company that the artist was in prison. You could. So they stalled Motown. They stalled Timmy. Timmy Regisford knew, but they stalled until they knew I was coming home in a couple of months. But anyway, my mindset was still the streets because I figured I'm in prison, man. It's too late for me to do anything, for me to make anything in my life. It's too late, and it wasn't my first time in prison. So I was like, it's too late. I'm gonna be a criminal and, I hope, I'll make my demos in between, but what else can I do? I'm not gonna be able to, merge into society. It's too late. I have a criminal record. I have felonies. And I read the book about this man and it just changed everything. So that's why on the No Prison's cover, I look like Malcolm X. My hair red. That was the impact that it had on me. And this was 1988. And I never went back to prison. I never even committed crimes after that. I never went back to the streets, never went there. It really changed my life. So, was a good thing. So that's that. But you don't change your mind overnight. So that's why those lines like that was on the Renegade. I still had a little bit of street mentality. I mean, I still maneuvered like I was a street dude, but I wasn't committing crime. I was fully committed to music. Yeah,
Be sure to check out the History of Gangster Rap by Soren Baker. He's official.
History of Gangster Rap features exclusive interviews with Ice-T, Snoop Dogg, MC Ren, the D.O.C, and dozens of others. The History of Gangster Rap, a definitive look at how Los Angeles changed rap forever.
In Los Angeles, the streets definitely set the tone of the hip-hop music.
At 19, I got a $50,000 car.
My whole angle always was, I'll be street, but I will always tell you the horrors that go along with this life.
There will be penalties and casualties for just wearing the wrong color in somebody's neighborhood.
And once gangster rap made it from the streets to the TV, the genre exploded.
With Fab 5 on Your MTV Raps with NWA.
Yo MTV, it just catapulted us from being local heroes to national gangbang rappers.
The History of Gangster Rap discusses it all from 1980 up till today.
It's always gonna be shit happening in the streets. You know what I mean? So it's always gonna be something to talk about.
The History of Gangster Rap in stores now.